Gaijin did an oopsie. You're seeing me on screen right now, flying right over the enemy airfield, and the AAA that usually just instantly obliterates your plane within about 5 seconds of you flying within the death bubble zone, it's just not doing anything to my plane, and I'm fighting this A7M right over his airfield, and I'm completely untouched. This is a bug, but if you don't think that this is better gameplay than what is the normal airfield, then I quite honestly think that you're brain dead and you should probably click off this video right now, or I'm going to find you and insult you in the comments. I am of course kidding, but it has been very satisfying the past week or two dealing with the airfield campers by their airfield simply not working and them realizing that it's not working, complaining in chat, or figuring out that they have absolutely nothing that they can do anymore because they suck at the game. Unfortunately, the high explosive bug that plagued the airfields, in a good way if you ask me, but that also applied to most of the cannons. So you see the enemy team here trying to shoot me down. I've been hit like 3 times at this point. I really should be dead, but because my cannons actually work and theirs don't, I win this fight, which again shouldn't happen. I did everything I could to lose, really. I was in 1 versus 3, but very situational. If I was on the other end of that, I would have been pretty upset. But today in this video I want to talk a bit about props, because I've been playing a lot of props since the AA thing happened. I don't really cover props, but I am getting a little bit better at them. I think I can give you guys some real examples on how to get better at them. Shout out to my buddy Chris from school. This video is specifically for you. This is a simple little energy trap that I'm running on this poor guy here. He was lower than me, he was slower than me, so instead of just immediately taking an angle for a shot on him, I kind of just fly over him with a lot of speed, wait for him to pass me so that I'm safe from his guns in any given opportunity, and then I'm going to come back down on him. Once again, same thing, this guy is lower than me. I wait to see if he is going to take the vertical to shoot at me, because if he does, I'm just going to go up myself and stay out of the way of his guns. And once he's stalled out, I'm going to make my attack. I timed my attack a little bit poorly, but again, if he's just going to hold a vertical like that, he's basically giving me a kill. So I just got to come back down on him, shoot him, free kills. And the emphasis on these clips I'm showing here is more so the altitude side of an energy trap. If you are higher than somebody, you're pretty much going to be able to kill them rather easily if they're just going to gun it straight up at you. They don't have to, but oftentimes they will. The other side that is a little bit more important that people often overthink in props is speed, and speed is actually very crucial to actually playing energy in a prop. And I'm going to go kind of off of Devin's key because it makes sense to me. When I say speed, I mean speed. When I say altitude, I mean altitude. And when I say energy, I mean speed and altitude. Starting off this fight, I picked a target of opportunity. The Focke-Wulf was kind of slow. He really didn't seem to be too adamant on evading me, so I pick him out of the fight real quick, make it a 1v2. Little do I know the other guy, the other Focke-Wulf, also doesn't have an engine, so it's really 1v1, but I didn't know that at the time. I'm going to take the speed that I gained from that dive, and I'm going to kind of shallow climb away from the 109. As he starts to get closer to me, I'm going to start turning and pulling out of the way of his guns and then continue my spiral upwards. I know that my plane has a better turn as far as radius. I can pull tighter than him, so all I'm doing with that is just simply closing the distance and keeping myself out of the way of his guns. And now that the distance is gone and he's not sitting right on my 6, I can take this time and actually start getting behind him. Again, my plane has a tighter turn radius, so really I just have to kind of hold my throttle down to 0, pull my flaps out when I can. I have plenty of altitude, so if I need to go faster, I can put my nose down and start diving to gain some speed. But if he's going to stick a scissor fight like this where we're just kind of turning back and forth into each other, there's really nothing he's going to be doing. He is in a K4, he could really just outpower me, but he's pretty much forfeited that play at this point as he's continuously turning with me. But the main point of this clip was again that I used that speed that I had initially from that first dive shooting the Focke-Wulf to get some a little bit of separation and start slowly climbing away from the K4. And then once I started turning in more towards him to close that distance, then I started pulling more aggressively, started climbing more aggressively, and sort of just kind of spiraled up and above his gun so that he couldn't hit me. That way now we're pretty much right next to each other and I'm going to be able to initiate that turn fight. What about when you're going head to head and you don't really want to take a head on? Well, here we see this guy a little bit underneath me, but pretty similar altitude. I don't want to keep climbing. Instead, I want to level out. I want to get as much speed as possible. Granted, I did enter this fight a little bit slower than I would have liked. I should have leveled out sooner and picked up even more speed. Regardless, he's not going nearly as fast as me, and I was able to tell just by looking at him. You're just going to have to pick that up over time. You look at a target and you can kind of judge how fast it's going. So I know I'm able to climb up and over, sort of take this guy into a spiral. He simply did not have the speed to follow me, and he tried his damn best, but he's just never going to get his guns on. And now I stall out on top of him, and I now have his 6. He starts initiating some weird spiral spinny thing to throw off my camera, I guess. Pretty annoying. But I'm not going to chase him down. That would be a waste. I've climbed up this high. It took me a very long time to get to this altitude. I'm not going to throw it all away from one target when there's multiple guys left on the enemy team that could be just as high as me still, and that way I would be forfeiting my altitude, and then they'd be higher than me. They'd pretty much do exactly what I'm doing to this guy. While we have a little bit of time, I want you to re-watch the beginning of this specific clip one more time and look at again how I initiate this fight. You notice I didn't fly straight at him. I kind of offset my nose a bit to the right, and what this does is that as I'm flying past him, he's got to pull upwards and turn even more to pull the lead to get his guns on me, and that's just going to kill even more of his speed, whereas I'm not really moving. I'm continuing to accelerate, which basically just sets me up to do that little spiral move even better. So if you have the chance, you do want to try to offset yourself if you plan on doing some kind of energy trap like that, any kind of spiral beforehand. You just have to make sure that you have enough speed to actually dodge his guns, because you are very oftentimes going to risk them getting that one single shot as you're passing them. So you just got to make sure you jink at the right time, stay out of their guns, and then from there you can just continue going up and over. But again, I can't emphasize this enough. You do need speed going into fights if you're going to actually dogfight somebody. That's not exclusive to jets. I know a lot of you guys are jet players out there that watch my channel, but speed is also extremely important in props. And so when you're getting close to somebody and they're similar altitude than you, don't just keep on climbing trying to get above them, because if you're above them but you have no speed to defend yourself, you're still going to die regardless of you being higher. So if they're within, 4, 5, 6 kilometers of you and you're closing distance rapidly, I'd recommend just leveling out, maybe even put your nose in a slight dive if you're really slow, to make sure you actually have some maneuvering speed to work with when you do finally merge together. If you already have altitude and your opponent just pitches straight up for you and you've already got some speed, you can just go ahead and pitch up just like I did there, and make sure that he can't actually get within range to shoot at you. He just goes straight vertical for me, stalls out, I stall out right on top of him, come back down, get some shots in. He's completely defenseless. There's nothing he can do there. Pretty much, he just shouldn't have done it in the first place. If you're going straight vertical and stalling yourself out for that one gun shot, it's probably not the right move, and at this point he's going too slow. He can't dodge any of my incoming fire even if he wanted to, and again, it's just because he doesn't have enough speed to actually fight. Looking around, I see the A7M behind me now, and he is still a bit a ways away, but he is my altitude. Actually, in fact, a little bit higher. And that's very scary, because any Japanese plane that has the altitude on you that they can cash in for some speed makes it pretty annoying to actually fight, because, well, at this point, all I can really do is run away from the guy, and that's what I'm gonna do. I have some speed still. I had like 500 something kilometers coming out of that fight with the Spitfire, so I'm going to shallow climb away. I'm doing a very small climb so that I continue putting distance between me and him, but we're also getting altitude with the slight angle of climb that we have. So I'm getting both speed, altitude, and distance. I'm maintaining speed by not putting my nose super high so that if I have to go fight him, I still have some speed to work with. I'm climbing still by pointing my nose up at all, and again, I'm getting that distance by maintaining the speed. While he was distracted with my teammate, I managed to get far enough away and enough altitude to where I'm comfortable, at least enough to turn around and fight him for a little bit. This kind of scared me a bit because not the Zeros, but the A7M as well as the Zero even, just do not stall out. They can go vertical, they can point their nose and hang in the air for a while and maybe get a gunshot on you despite having like no airspeed. But I did have more than enough energy to continue the spiral, but again, he's just not stalling out. So at this point, I'm a little bit confused. How do I get out of this spiral? And really, I didn't see a way at the time in which I could do so. So again, I just keep on continuing to turn. And then my engine is also overheating to make matters worse. So basically, this fight isn't going to work out. What I do is I cut throttle to cool off my engine, but if I cut throttle, he's going to catch me, so that means I also have to dive to get some speed. I am faster than an A7 in a straight line, but my throttle is going to be a little bit lower, so I gotta be careful about that. Once I've cooled off my engine, I go to 100%, not WEP, because I don't want to overheat right after cooling it off. And then I'm just going to fly away from him, because that's pretty much all I can do at this point. When we're at equal altitude levels, we pretty much both came out of the same dive. Our speed isn't going to be that different. I cannot turn around and go try to fight him right now. I'm just going to die the second that I make that 180-degree turn. I'm going to lose my speed, and he's just going to turn circles around me all day long, because that's his plane's specialty. So again, I do what I initially did, and I do a shallow climb so that I can maintain that speed, continue putting distance between me and him, but I'm also just climbing to get some altitude. So at the very least, I can dive away and reset the fight like you saw me do last time, but preferably he just gets bored or stops climbing or whatever the reason may be, and then I have infinite altitude over him and speed. Of course, if I manage to get enough distance between me and him, I can turn around more safely. But that'd take a while, and thankfully for me, he kind of gets bored or runs out of fuel. I don't know what it is. Either way, he goes back to airfield, and you saw what happened at the very beginning of this video. That's the same A7M. I hope you've kind of gotten the concept as far as starting the fights with some speed, taking them into a spiral if you know you have that speed advantage. It also just going to depend on the plane a little bit, but, you know, rule of thumb, that could work out for you going into a merge. You also just have to make sure that you're timing things right and having enough separation to actually make the attack. You saw that scoreboard correctly. I'm in a 1 versus 7. And no, I didn't just jay out on the runway and return to hangar, because that would be extremely lame. My best and most fun games come from situations like this. No, I don't win them all. I'd say probably 19 out of 20 of them I actually lose, as a matter of fact. But for that one that you can get every once in a while, I think it's worth it to actually stay and play the rest of the match. Why did I turn in to fight this guy right now? I was climbing off to the side, I had just taken off from my airfield, I don't have a lot of speed, I don't have a lot of altitude. Well, it's because his friend, who's right behind him, is closing the distance rapidly, and when you're in a situation like this, you have to be as aggressive as you can in order to single people out, and that's exactly what I did. I managed to get to that 109 before his friend comes along, because I would much rather take his friend one-on-one when he has an altitude advantage rather than just me continue to climb and it be a 2v1. The 1v1 is always going to be better for me because I can at least focus all of my attention on one guy. Unfortunately, the 109 just kind of put the fire out. I know that the guy that's right behind me right now is not going to complete that turn in time before I get more shots onto his friend. And again, I'm just being hyper aggressive, trying to eliminate as many possible guns on me as I can in as short of amount of a time as I can. And so now I just get to deal with this guy, which is perfect because I like dealing with one guy a lot more than two. Admittedly, if you're going to win a game like this, the enemy team has to throw to a certain degree. In a 1v7, they have to throw pretty damn hard. And thankfully for me, this guy kind of does because he's in a 2000 C205, I don't know. He's in something that should outturn me pretty damn easily. And unfortunately, I end up kind of outturning him a little bit. I anticipate his move the wrong direction, so I kind of rolled the wrong way going into that little loop there. But going the wrong way actually gave me a little bit more distance. While I did sacrifice a lot of speed, well, relatively speaking, I sacrificed some speed there. I did get some distance out of it. So you kind of, give and take with both of those. Not something I was trying to do, but it ultimately kind of works out in the end because I get firmly behind him here, get one shot on. Again, he kind of throws. He really should outturn me. He flew right in front of my nose. The 50 cals thankfully worked pretty damn well for me, and that's kind of just been how it's been for the whole video. My 50 cals work rather well. I know these are some pretty controversial guns because a lot of people just don't get any luck with them, and to you, I probably just want to say skill issue because as long as you're actually aiming correctly, 50 cals in prop tier is kind of stupid. They set fire super easily, they're stupid easy to aim, and you get an infinite amount of ammo. This clip I just included to show you what happens, but there's nothing to see there. The guy was pretty much AFK and gave me a free kill. So now I'm going to move on to the next part of the battle. Guy doesn't want me to camp my airfield, which is completely understandable. However, the airfield is still broken at this time, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't, and there he is. So here I am thinking I'm going to take a 109K4 into a 1 versus 1, which I should probably lose because the 109K4 has a lot more engine power than me, a lot better maneuvering energy retention than me. At least at most altitudes. Low altitude, I'm not positive on his engine power, but nonetheless, the only real advantage I have here in this fight is my turn. I can pull a good bit tighter than the 109. I wouldn't say a lot better, but I can turn a good bit better, especially with my flaps. My flaps are a lot easier to work with than him. And unfortunately, a second 109 is coming into the picture, and it is also a K4, so again, I should really be dead to rights here, but the enemy team just kind of throws a little bit. They do put up a good fight, mistakes happen obviously, and this is just that 1 out of 20 games I was talking about earlier. Either way, what's actually happening? Well, he's kind of panicking because he's not playing his energy well, he's not playing his speed. He could probably just take me into a vertical spiral. As long as he can stay out of my nose for 1 or 2 shots that I might have, I'm probably just going to stall out and run out of energy, and then his teammate's going to be able to run a train on me if he really wants to. But again, I'm trying to focus this guy down before his teammate gets here, just again so I can not do a 2v1. It's always better to just focus somebody down and get yourself into more of a 1 versus 1 situation, and I am able to gun him down simply by just turning inside of him the whole time. I think this guy tried to play the speed that he had built up there, but his first turn, where he was turning back around to get a gunshot on me before his friend died, kind of killed a lot of his speed, and he almost did it well there, but he just didn't have enough. A little bit mismanagement of speed, and I'm able to flip around and get that 150 cal to catch him on fire. Again, I think 50 cals are kind of bullshit guns in prop tier. They're super easy to use, and I'm doing all of this, by the way, with 250 cals. When you're on your last like 400, 500 rounds in the P51, you're down to 2 guns, and they are still doing plenty of work as long as you can actually aim. Granted, a little bit of lucky as far as the fire goes, but that's just 50 cals. They set fires. At this point, it's just a matter of staying behind him, so I cut my throttle. All I have to do right now is not fly right in front of his nose, and there's pretty much nothing he can do. He eventually goes into the ground, and I win one of the most fun games I've had in a long time, mostly thanks to the airfield AAA not working. Gaijin, please make it suck again. The game was so much better, for the love of God. I don't want to deal with 4 Ju-288s flying around their airfield, pretending they're a NASCAR driver for 8 minutes straight, or bombing Barry, just going right back to his base the first